Here's Zach Sorensen, Wichita alum, former MLB player, but MLB performance coach, was with the Braves, the Rangers, but now with the Reds, and then was on our webinar last night with Pison. So, Zach, thanks for jumping on with me.
Yeah, fired up to be here, man. Always good to connect with you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
heck yeah. Hey, what percentage this time of year is you trying to put fires out for players that maybe are struggling?
Yeah, good question. Good question. We're right here at the break. And this is where guys, in fact, I had a chance to be with our AA team last week, and our manager asked us, can you talk to the guys that are looking over their shoulder right now? The guys that are saying, hey, I'm not doing what I need to be doing and I'm pressing. So, if I were to put a number to it, it's a big number. It's amazing how many guys are worried, concerned, fearful for, am I going to get called into the office and is my dream coming to an end? So the number's bigger than everybody thinks.
How much of that is where the draft is now, too?
Yeah, good point. Good point. 20 rounds, right? Is that correct? 20 rounds? So 20 new players coming in plus free agent signs. So guess what that means? Yeah. If 20 guys are coming in, there's 20 guys that are going out. So, of course, you always need players in the game of baseball because of injuries and this and that. But anytime someone gets a new job in professional baseball, you have to make room for a player. So that means that 20 players are on the way out. So this time of year is a tough time of year. It's a time to evaluate. It's a time to assess. And it's a time to make decisions, and it's a tough time of year for anybody who has to make those decisions.
Where do you start with trying to get them in a better headspace?
Yeah, being a true self-evaluator. Like, I'm all about honesty. I want to know the truth. I want to know every ounce of the truth. And the reason why I'm so big about that is because that's what got me from where I was to the big leagues. Like, I went to my manager and I'm like, can you give me a scouting report on me? And he honestly was like, no, I can't. I'm like, well, why not? And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, it's never been done before to my knowledge. And I'm like, listen, everybody's got a scouting report on me. The other team does. Every other team does. You do. Our GM does. Like, why can't I have a report on me that says, okay, here's what Zach really struggles with? And he goes, honestly, I don't know the answer to that question, but here's probably why. He goes, because you probably can't handle it. Now think about that for a second. Let's go back and think about all of our players that we're, as coaches. That's why our kids can't have a scouting report, is because they can't handle it. Wow, right? So he ended up giving me a report a couple days later, and he met me at the door the next day. And I'm like, what are you doing at the door? And he's like, I just want to make sure you're okay. And I'm like, of course I'm okay. And then he's like, why are you okay? Like, I just gave you 5 pages of things that you're no good at, or that these are your weaknesses. And I'm like, you just gave me the answers to the test. These are the things. Like, work ethic is not a problem for anybody who's at the elite levels of playing any sport or any game or any business or any job. Like, work ethic, if you struggle with work ethic as a player, like, you're not going to make it. Like, let's just eliminate you right now. But now I have what I need to work on. And a couple years later, I get, I get the phone call and they sit me down and say, you're going to the major leagues. And I wouldn't recommend this to any player ever. But I looked to my GM and my manager and I'm like, can I ask a question? They're like, yeah. Like, why me? Like, why now? Why me? And the reasons that they gave me were the exact same as my weaknesses 2 years before when I got my report. So, advice I give to all coaches everywhere is every single player should know exactly where they stand, and it should be an honest report. I'm a big believer in that. If a kid struggles with something, tell him. And we got to have thick skin as players, because that's the goal. That's the answer to the test.
And I've been on that side as a coach because, with the other opponent coaches that you trusted, you would actually trade your scouting report with them just to see what other teams had. But then I would share that with some of our players, and you have to do a good job of shifting their perspective on, like, hey, this is what it says about you. It doesn't mean you're a bad player. It just means this is what you have to get better at.
Absolutely. And if you do, and I always follow it up, and if you do, like, look where you project, right? Look who you can become. Like, this doesn't mean that you can't. This means that you can, right? And so, it's so tricky as coaches, we have to follow it up with the next sentence, but we do. And, but just think about what you're doing. Like, why do we coach, right? We coach for that right there. We coach to help players become who they can become. So this is why this is such an instrumental, crucial part of what coaching. This is what we live for as coaches, is to help these players become. And so, why would we not give them a list of things to help them become, and then follow through with a plan and a process, and then be in the trenches with them to help them become that?
Is there a barrier of entry to play in the big leagues?
Say that again.
Is there a barrier of entry to play in the big leagues?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's, the big leagues it's unbelievable how good those players are.
I just saw it Tuesday in Atlanta. Ridiculous.
I mean, I got to the big leagues, and it's interesting. You come back home. It's so interesting. You come back home and everyone's like, "Wow, you really struggled when you got to the big leagues. Like, what's up?" And I'm like, I said, you know what I found out when I got there? And they're like, what? And I'm like, those guys are really good. But here's why I got into the mental game. Okay. Like, when I got to the mental game, and I think a lot of players go through this, I didn't feel like I deserved to be there. I wasn't sure if I belonged to be there. And I didn't have any strategies to help me get through that. And so what do we wait for? We wait for success to tell us that we like we're okay. Well, what if you don't get success, right? And I didn't have success, when I got there. So I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting for success. And so if you don't get success as a player right away, and you don't keep getting chances, well, then it just was like, well, I guess it's pretty cool to say I played there. But and to be honest with you, like, even myself, and this is a story that is tough. Like, in my wife, she gives me a hard time about it. But you walk away from the game and you're like, man, was I disappointing to everybody? Like, I was a second round draft pick. I got parts of 2 years in the major leagues, and I hate to even tell people I played there, because I don't want them to go look at my batting average, for being there. Everyone's like, oh man, you played in the major leagues. And I'm like, not really, And this is the mental game that's still like affecting me to this day, right? And so I get into the mental game because I don't want any player to go through what I went through. I don't want them to not have strategies that when they get there, they can't lean on. I'll take a line out of Dr. Ken Raviz's book, right? And right from his mouth. I want you to have something to go to when you need something to go to. I heard him say that to me personally. I've heard him say it all over the place. And I'm like, can I use that? And can I use it every single time I talk about the mental game? I want you to have something to go to when you need something to go to. And I'll tell you what, when you get to the major leagues, you're going to need something to go to. So let's train it now. Let's don't wait until you need the mental game, okay, for you to start searching for things in the mental game, to start searching for somebody that might help you. Because a lot of the players we run into, and you know this, Coach, they don't need the mental game when they're in high school. A lot of them don't even need the mental game in college. I mean, we don't like to talk about our careers very often because it's just something we don't do. But, college baseball was a riot. We had lots of success. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Even back then when we were using Bam Bam bats and minus however many, right? The ball used to fly. Let's just leave it at that. It was a lot of fun. And so did we need the mental game back then? I don't know, right? But there's going to be a time.
I did. I was not as talented as you are.
There's going to be a time when you're going to need the mental game. So that's my message to everybody out there is let's train it now because you're going to need it. I've yet to meet a player who doesn't need the mental game, and so let's attack it now.
How do you reframe that perspective, especially with your big league hitters, because the stuff is so good now. They know exactly where to play you on the field. They know exactly how to pitch you. How do you reframe kind of what success is at the big league level? Because if you're going to, what's the average now, 220, 230 at the big league level? Like if you're chasing that, good luck. So what do you reframe success at? What does that look like for a big league hitter? What is success as a big league hitter?
Yeah, and this is where this gets tricky because, mental performance coaches, and I do, here's why I got in the mental game also is because I had a chance to fail. And I had a chance to struggle. And, Mark Shapiro, who is my general manager, and now he's the president of the Toronto Blue Jays, unbelievable person. I'm sitting down with him, and he's like, what do you want to do in this game? He's like, listen to yourself talk, and you figure out what your passion is. And I'm like, the problem, Mark, is that I love everything about the game. And I'm like, I could be a hitting coach. I could be a defensive coach. I mean, you name it, right? We all love this game so much. This game owns every ounce of us, right? And so I went and worked the camp based on his advice. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be defense. I mean, we play the middle infield and we love talking defense. And then hitting is like, well, geez, hitting's everything, right? And I sat in on every single pitching meeting from the time I was playing college baseball at Wichita State because I cared so much about my pitchers playing the middle infield. So that was unique. And then somebody asked me a question about the mental game, and I was like, you know what, we need better coaching in the mental game. So that's what got me into it. So going back to your question about how do you reframe success, the reason why I brought that up is I feel like I have a different perspective on success because I had a chance to play the game at the elite level. The textbook would say, you got to go back to your process. And your success is all based on you executing your process. Okay. What I have done with my pitchers at the elite level, and not just the elite level, all the way down to high school pitchers that I have a chance to work with, is all we care about is execution of our process. Okay, so, and I'll leave names out of this, but one of our, 4 of our starting pitchers or all of our starting pitchers in the major leagues, after their start, we will sit down and we'll go back and look at video. We'll look at every single pitch that they throw or they threw the day before. And together we'll sit and look at it, and I'll look at them and I'll say, did you execute that pitch the way you wanted to execute it? Yes or no? And they'll say, yes. And we'll put a yes down, or, we have a way of doing it. And so it all comes down to, that's all we care about, because that's what we can control, right? We can control certain things. Now, I'll be like, well, wait a second, that guy hit a double off the wall. And he's like, yeah, but I executed the pitch the way I wanted to execute the pitch. Okay. And that's the reason why we have to have, that's why you asked this question, is because of Paul Skeens, right? Paul Skeens can't get a win in an all-star game where he had a 6-run lead. That's why you asked the question. He's got to be laying in bed at night, and he's like, well, what does success mean? Because, I just had a 6-run lead, and I didn't get the win. He's having a hard time getting wins, which most people think is success, and he's out there pitching like a Cy Young.
But that's the beautiful thing about baseball is you're relying on other people unless they want to let him start finishing games off. Right. Which you may get to that point with him, is just see if he can go 9 every time out. They won't let him do that anymore in the big leagues. But in the old days, they would. It'd be like Nolan Ryan was going to win more games because Nolan Ryan was going to start the first inning and he was going to pitch until he won that game in the 9th. And so way different time of baseball now.
Totally. So the mental game, to me, somebody asked me that, like, how do you define the mental game? It is having strategies for players so that they can compete one pitch at a time, right? And I know we've heard that before, but so what I like to do, and I learned this from, my mentors, Brian Caines, the Dorfmans, the Revises that we talked about earlier, is if we're going to play this game one pitch at a time, then what we need to do is find a way to hold ourselves accountable to that. So we don't just say we're going to play the game one pitch at a time. We have to hold ourselves accountable and take the next step. Okay, so if that's what we're going to do, we're going to track it. Okay, so all right. So to my starting pitchers, okay, well, what's your percentage of execution on your fastballs in attack counts? Okay, well, and what we found out for a starting pitcher in a Major League Baseball game, if they're between 69 to 71% execution, they're going to win a Major League Baseball game. So what's their focus, on winning games? No, it's on executing one pitch at a time. All right, and so same thing goes for our hitters. And so we go back to our hitters, good friend of mine, Sean Casey, which is a good friend of all of ours, right? I don't know the guy who isn't the best friend of everybody. We go to Sean, and I asked him, like, Sean, if you were to do 3 things on every single pitch that would give you the best chance to have success, what would they be? And he gets all excited, see the ball, be easy, hammer it, Or I go to another hitter, and I'm like, if you were to do 3 things on every single pitch that would give you the best chance to have success, what would they be? see the ball, get a good pitch to hit, be on time. All right. So after the game, I go back to each hitter and I said, let's walk through your AB. On that pitch right there, did you see the ball? Did you get a good pitch? Were you on time? Yes or no? That means you executed your approach in that at bat. Now it's not about, because there's things you cannot control, but you can control your process, and that's what we look for.
You have any players that journal during the game?
100%. Most of the time, during the game a little bit, 100% after the game. And that's some of the stuff I'm talking about. Those are our post-game journals. And we do that, I call them the execution journals, which is what I'm speaking of. And then after we get done with the executions, I always have them answer 3 simple questions. What did you do well? What do you want to do better? And then how are you going to do it? And here's what's cool about that. A lot of us live in this fear of failure, right? You kind of spoke about it earlier. Okay. What if I don't? What if I can't? And questions along those lines. So let's say I go out there tonight and I'm a hitter, and a lot of times we're speaking about outcomes, unfortunately, right? Outcomes. And sometimes we get them away from that. But let's say I go out there and I got 3 knocks, 3 hits. And so what did you do well? Well, I saw the ball well. And I always try to pull more out of my players. Okay, well, what allowed you to see the ball well? Okay, well, I took a deep breath before every single pitch. And when I take a deep breath, it allows me to relax, focus, and gets me to the present moment. Perfect. That's much different than I saw the ball well. Okay, so that's what you did well. Well, what do you want to do better? Well, in my last at bat, I got a hit off the left-handed pitcher, and then he picked me off first base. And so I need to do a better job reading left-handed pitchers. Great. How are you going to do that? All right. And then in the journal I have for them, it says, what is your 1424? Coach B, do you have any idea what a 1424 is?
You talked about it, and then yeah.
It's 1% of your day in time. Okay, so we always talk about getting 1% better. So 1% of your day in time is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So in the journal I have for them, it says, how are you going to do it? What is your 1424? So think about that. What do you want to do better? I want to read left-handed pitchers better. How are you going to do it? Well, tomorrow I'm going to grab a teammate of mine that's left-handed, and I'm going to have him show me his move for 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So in the game today, I got picked off by a left-handed pitcher. And most of the time we get mad, frustrated, upset, disappointed, pissed off, and then we hope it never happens again. Well, if you journal correctly and you do a well, better, how, you write it down, you put a plan in place for tomorrow. Tomorrow you wake up, open your journal, and you're like, okay, I'm going to grab my left-handed teammate and I'm going to go work on that. And because I attack my weakness or failure from last night, I'm actually getting better. And because of the failure, I'm now a better player. And we absolutely lose our fear of failure because we attack it the next day and we become better. And so, Kobe Bryant says that. He got interviewed and they're like, what does losing feel like to you? And he's like, it's exciting. Well, why is it exciting? Because that's where the answers are. Like, that's how you get better. And then Lewis Howes asked him, okay, well, you get answers from losing more than you do from winning. And he's like, no. The answers are there when you win also. You just have to look at them. It's exciting when you win. It's exciting when you lose because the answers are there when you win or you lose. You just have to look at them. You just look and you figure out what you did well, what you want to do better, and then how you're going to do it. So that's the post-game evaluation journaling you're talking about in the form of a well, better, how.
Yeah, our players that really had a hard time releasing bad outcomes, we would have them journal in game to get them to release it, to evaluate it and be done with it so they weren't stewing over it on to the next pitch, the next inning, next at bat, just to let them release it as far as just a good release, to write it down. Okay, it's over with. What's it Chuck Norris says, to write down your fears and then burn them?
Burn them. Love it. 100%. Burn them up. I love it.
Have any of your philosophies changed on the mental game over the years?
It's interesting. I had this vision of what I needed as a player. And so I went and got my master's in sports psychology. I hate to kind of say this publicly. A lot of the stuff that I teach, I didn't necessarily get from the textbook. And a lot of it's just this of what I needed based on experiences, based on learnings from, Revisit, Dorfman, Kane. And the reason why I say that is because I think a lot of what I needed and what I think players needed is practical application of sports psychology techniques. We don't really need to talk about per se like how we're feeling as a player. Like, I want something to do about it. I want you to give me something to go out and try. And so when I sat down when COVID hit, I took one day to kind of get worried and feel, like what is going to happen and this and that. And the very next day I went out and started shooting videos. And I'm like, this is my vision of what I needed as a player and what I think is going to help a player. And then later that year, I was able to roll it out with my very first major league player. And it really seemed to help him. And what's interesting is over the course of the past 5 years is the structure has been exactly the same. Now, of course, I'm going to add a few things to it here and there. The only thing that I've kind of gone back and forth on is how much do you teach about winning? How hard do you go when it comes to talk about winning? Now, my perspective and view really hasn't changed, but how much do we talk about it sometimes has changed because, my perspective is this, is we don't necessarily go out there and coach winning. We go out and coach, here's what it takes to win, and we're going to be better than anybody about this. But I feel like we need to talk about it all the time. Because when you go out and coach winning players, at the end of the day, we're going to go out and win. And so I feel like it's okay to talk about it. And that's where I've come to. Initially as a mental performance coach, we kind of stay away from that. And I did that when I first started. And I've kind of leaned into it a little bit more and says, no, it's okay to talk about that. Like, we're here to compete, and we're here to go out and compete to win. And so I'm back on that. When I was playing college baseball, we expected to win every single day that we showed up.
Well, yeah, I'm sure those three talked about winning all the time. I'm sure Gene, JT, and Brent talked about winning all the time.
100%. And that was our expectation. And so, I'm leaning more into that right now, whether I'm working with my Major League Baseball players, my PGA golf, or whatever it may be. It's like, when we don't go out there and expect to win, like, it's okay to make excuses like for mediocrity
and playing to win. I mean, that's a big thing, is playing to win. But playing to win. And a lot of kids now don't ever get that opportunity because the way their schedules are set up at a young age, it's not playing to win. It's just playing to play.
Playing to play. Yeah. And I think you said it perfect right there. And that, I think you articulated exactly what I mean.
Yep.
It's playing to win. And so it's playing to win. It's not just playing to play. So that's one thing that's changed.
What would you go back and add if you were playing again? Out of everything that you know now, what would be the one or two things that you would add immediately into your game if you had a chance to go back and do it again?
Yeah, one thing that I'm really focusing on right now, and I would go back and try to find, and I don't have the answers to it yet, so I'm going to put you on the spot, and you're going to teach me right here. This is going to be fun for all of our listeners right here. Is again, and you know this because you've been in the mental game as long as me or longer than me. Okay, and so this has hit me. This has kept me up for the past couple weeks, and this is what I needed as a player. All right. And I think a lot of our players need this right now. When we go out and we get to the point to where we're meeting resistance in the game, we're struggling. It's hard. And this game's a tough game. Like, I don't know if there is a tougher game. Like, we all agree with that, right? We start to see things as threats. Okay. Like for my professional baseball players, like we talked about earlier, the new draft, my batting average is struggling. I'm having a hard time getting people out. My velocity is not where everybody else's velocity is. The big stage, there's so many things. They're all threats, and threats are scary. And threats, let's be real. Like, we all know what I'm talking about. We see things as threats, and when you have a threat, things start popping up. If I were to describe what threats are, that threat-focused mindset, it kind of triggers our fight or flight response.
Lizard brain. It's called the lizard brain.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
perfect. You're right.
It's the lizard brain.
Lizard brain. And so the opposite of that would be the challenge-focused mindset, right? So I guess where I'm going with this is when I got to that point in the major leagues, I didn't necessarily see my struggle as a challenge. I saw it as a threat. If I don't start swinging the bat at the major league level, guess what's going to happen? I'm going back down. And so that was a threat to me. It wasn't a challenge to me. It wasn't like, and so here I come from this guy who just absolutely loves competing. And all of a sudden you get to that one spot where you have some doubt and you go down the path of this as a threat instead of the path of this as a challenge. That's the first time I met that. And so if we're going to take this to what you and I love so much about the mental game and from our mentors in the mental game and say, okay, I don't want to just talk about the threat versus challenge focused mindset. Okay. We need strategies to do that. How does a player do that, coach? How does a player shift from a threat to a challenge focused mindset?
I think the biggest thing for me is the expectation needs to be that it's going to be bumpy. Like, you should fully embrace that. That's the beauty of the game, is how challenging it is and how difficult it is. And you also have to be willing to give yourself some grace on when you make mistakes. And that's a big part of forgiving yourself. I think that's where all humans, not just athletes, I think that's where all humans get stuck, is because they make a mistake and then they ruminate on that mistake instead of understanding, like, this is part of the deal and this is what I signed up for as a professional baseball player or as a human, and it's going to be rocky and bumpy, and that's okay, and that's part of what I signed up for, but that's just part of the deal. And then whatever tools you have to get rid of it and flush it and move on. But I think as a narrative of society as a whole is, we've given them a false narrative of that things are supposed to be easy, and it's not. Like, if you're playing at the elite level or you're elite performer at any level, it's going to be difficult, and you should embrace that fact that that's what you sign up for, and you should really be grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that, because not everybody gets to do that. Like, you should be grateful for the opportunity to be able to go out and put a uniform on every day. Yeah, it does. It stinks. You should. And that shows that you care too. And like, that's the other reframing part of that. Like, if you're upset that you're not doing well, show yourself some grace for that, because again, this is probably what I'm most passionate about, especially now in society, of the narrative of that it's not supposed to be easy. It's just not. Like, and the ones that are great and handling it, they understand that it's not going to be easy, but they also are great about meeting those challenges too.
Yeah. I love that, man. I saw something the other day, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's like, hard is not impossible. Hard is not this. Hard is not that. Hard is just hard. And you can do hard things, right?
Things are hard.
Yeah, things are hard. And we've seen that before. And I think you're right on. Instead of letting our minds go to, I'm just thinking about making that jump from the minor leagues to the major leagues. And when you struggle, immediately you go to, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if my swing can play here. I don't know if my stuff is good enough to belong here. Instead of our mind going to that, like you said, you got to give yourself grace because these guys are pretty good. We brought that up already. But I think the key there is to stay curious. Okay, well, what just, okay, so I gave up 3 runs right there. Well, what was the situation right there? How was my execution? Stay curious with what happened right there, but always continue to have trust in what got you there. Always continue to have trust in your process and stick to it. Don't always go to, okay, well, I need to go revamp my swing. Like, your swing is what got you there, and stick to what happens there. And it's interesting, maybe we go down this path right now. One thing that has changed, going to your previous question, is, the number one question I get asked, especially from high school and even into college players and mostly parents, is, can you help my son or daughter with their confidence? And I don't teach confidence anymore. I don't do it. And it's an interesting shift, and I'm super excited about going down this path. This probably happened, about a year and a half ago, because everybody that I've worked with in the past, even my mentors, I love the way that we've always taught the idea of confidence. Confidence isn't something we get; it's something we do. And so we shift this idea that we're not going to wait for confidence to happen. right? We're going to go out and do it. We're going to take action on it. And I agree with all that. We teach that confidence comes from preparation, right? I agree with all that. But let me tell you where I've kind of shifted, and this is kind of a fun topic to talk about right here, so that's kind of why I brought it up. I woke myself up in the middle of the night one night. That's where I do a lot of my thinking. You're learning that right now. But I get the chance to go, and it's an amazing opportunity to go speak in front of 150 to 175 minor league players a lot. And so this night I woke up in the middle of it, and I was actually in my dream or whatever it may be, I was speaking to 150 minor league players. And I'm giving them the topic and the talk on confidence. And I'm like, hey, confidence comes from preparation. Confidence, this is it. Don't wait for confidence to happen. And I always talk to them about confidence. Where does it come from? And everybody says success. Well, what if you don't get success? You're getting ready to go pitch against the Yankees, and you're not going to have confidence until you beat the Yankees, but you can't. Are you going to beat the Yankees without having confidence? We have this dilemma. And so, and so this is where the talk goes. And so I'm talking to them about this, and this is where I introduce the confidence comes from preparation. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, there's 150 athletes that are shaking their heads. Well, how many of them are nodding their heads and agreeing with me? And I'm like, there's probably 15 to 20 athletes in the, sitting down right there that say, wait a second, I showed up to spring training absolutely, completely prepared for this season, and I'm not confident. And so I'm not saying that what we're teaching is wrong, but I'm like, is there a different way or a better way that I could teach this? Because I've shown up for an event before completely prepared, but not very confident. Like we go out to run, we go out and do, Brian Kane drags me out to do all these crazy runs and races all the time. And I feel like we're prepared, but the confidence level's not there, right? And so is there a different way maybe we could attack this, a different way? Because how we teach things, like sometimes, and how we coach things, it might hit certain players one way, but it might not resonate with someone else. So maybe a different way. So that night, it's 2:33 in the morning. I look up the definition of confidence. And first of all, we always teach that confidence is an action. Okay. It's not a feeling, which would make it a verb. And in the dictionary, the definition of confidence, it says it's a noun. All right. And it says it's a feeling, and we teach that it's not a feeling, right? It's a feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. Okay, but that doesn't blow me away. Like it needs to be more powerful than that to me. But at the back end of the definition, it says something that gave me the chills that night, and it still does. It says firm trust. I love that. And I know you do as well. Okay. So the secondary definition of confidence is firm trust. And so immediately I jump over and I look up the definition of trust. And guess what? It says it's a verb, an action word. And I got excited, right? And the definition of trust, which is a verb, it says firm belief in the reliability, the truth, the ability or strength of someone or something. And I'm like, yes, that's what I wanted to see, okay? So I don't teach that we're going to build confidence. We don't base what we do on confidence. All of my athletes now base everything on trust. Okay, we're not looking for confidence, because honestly, confidence, even though we try to teach it doesn't, at the end of the day, it's still based on what? Outcomes. But trust is different. So I'll go to my athletes and I'm like, hey, where does your confidence come from? And I'm in spring training this year with all of our major league, catchers that are in camp. And I'm like, where does your confidence come from? And one guy's like, success, And I'm like, well, yeah, it does. There's no doubt about it. And one guy's like, deep in my heart, deep in my soul, for my preparation. I loved his answer. And they all had different answers. And I'm like, can I take your confidence from you? And they sit there and they're like, no. And I'm like, I'm glad. Can 0 for 30 take your confidence from you? And they just put their heads down, and half of them said yes. And I'm like, that's the problem with confidence. Then I started teaching trust. And I said the same question, can I take your trust from you? And everyone's like, no, you cannot. And I'm like, can 0 for 30 take your trust? And they're like, no. No, you cannot. And so that's why I'm so excited about teaching this from now on is trust is what we're looking for. Okay. It's an action word. It's something we can believe in and we can build it up. And so what I actually did, and we love to do this in mental performance, is I did a reframe on that trust. Okay. And I created a champion statement or a power statement, a morning mantra, whatever it is you want to call it. And I print these out, and all my players have these in their locker, and I expect them to read them to themselves every day. And it says, going back to the definition, I can rely on myself. I trust myself. I believe in my ability. I believe in my strength. Because of this, I can overcome. And if I can get my athletes to truly believe in that statement, that means they trust in who they are. And going back to the first part, I'm reverse engineering this. If they believe that, then they're a confident player and a confident person.
Well, how many times have guys had terrible bullpens and terrible batting practice? They go out and just rake in games and dominate. And again, if you're trying to get confidence off things, it's probably not going to go well for you.
Yeah.
If you need certain things to happen to be confident, but trust is a great word for it, because that's more of what it actually is. Yeah. I go back to the four pillars I call them the four pillars when I go speak: sleep, nutrition, exercise, and quiet time, whatever you want to call it. I start there first if people are struggling, because I think that stuff breeds anxiety if you're not on top of those four things. So I always go to there first. If they're on top of that, then we'll work some of the other things. But for me, it's those four things first, because that usually leads to some anxiety. But also you have to reframe anxiety as excitement. If I talk to players that are really struggling in game, we always try to reframe anxiety as excitement. That you're excited for today, excited for the next pitch, excited for this, rather than I'm anxious. And just that 100%. Reframe mentally gets them going on the right path. Now, you got to go out and do it, but your internal dialogue is important. How you talk to yourself is important. And yes, some of like I think Jordan was a good example of probably had terrible internal dialogue at times, but it worked for him. My internal dialogue, I still in the weight room, there's some fire in there, but it's more like get your butt in gear and get going. So it's a motivational internal dialogue, but it's not always positive either.
Right. Well, it's interesting you talk about that. And right now on my, I have a personal podcast I do. We're talking about self-talk right now. And, you kind of talk about the differences. You have negative self-talk. Does it work? Most of the time it doesn't. Occasionally it does get you going, but most of the time we stay away from the negative self-talk. What most people think is mental performance coaches always teach positive self-talk. And a lot of times it does work, but there's definitely certain times where I'm like, positive self-talk isn't the answer.
Fix it.
Because
do better.
Yeah,
fix it.
I've worked with people and they're like, the positive self-talk, the rah-rah right now, that's not going to get it done. And so I actually teach and I get, this from Trevor Moad, who was unbelievable in his job. He talks about neutral self-talk. And it's a special space that doesn't get taught very often, but neutral self-talk is where you go to the truth and then you take action. So go to the truth. This is what's happening right now, okay? And he talks about Russell Wilson because, Russell Wilson, that was his guy. Russell, I just threw 3 interceptions on the last 3 possessions. That's the truth. However, we're still in this game, and I got to get over that and march my team down the field and get us back in this game and score a touchdown. So if Russell Wilson beats himself up and goes to negative self-talk, that's not going to help. If Russell Wilson's like, hey, I'm still the greatest quarterback in the NFL, that's not going to help him either. He just threw 3 interceptions. Go to the truth. Okay, we're down by 6 with 4 minutes left in the game. Here's what I need to do. That's neutral self-talk, and that's probably what's going to be most effective. So allow yourself to go into that third space, which can be, very effective at times.
I think that's why athletes have gravitated towards stoicism too. With Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way. I think because that's a stoicism thing is staying neutral in any situation.
Right.
And it's also called amor fati, love your fate. Love your fate. Amor fati is a stoicism term, and it means love your fate, and that talks about being neutral in any situation. Is staying neutral.
Love
And
it.
the Buddhist term is, I think the fable is perhaps or maybe, like, was that a good situation? Something positive happened? Well, maybe. Something
Maybe.
negative happened to me? Well, maybe. Because you
Love
really
it.
don't know what the end outcome is going to be anyway. So maybe.
Just be where your feet are and let's go from here.
What role do parents have in all this? I mean,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with big leaguers too. I'm sure their parents are highly involved. Like, it's a different generation now. I'm sure their parents are highly involved with their path now, even at the big league level.
Yeah, I think parents play a huge role. And this is tricky because, it's a different group, it's a different generation, and parents don't know what role they're supposed to play. The way we got parented is completely different than how we need to parent. And so this is an eye-opening experience. I mean, um, step it up, get your head in the game. What's wrong with you? That's kind of how we grew up, right? That doesn't work right now. And so my advice to parents is the mental game is out there for you to learn also. These strategies are out there for you to learn, for you to understand. And a lot of parents will come to me and say, "Hey, can you work with my child? Can you work with math?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And they're like, "Just leave me out of this. I don't want to have anything to do with it because, I they don't really want to talk to me about any of this." So my advice to them is, "Hey, I want you to go on your journey as well and learn the mental game also because this is a unique space and the strategies that your child's going to learn in the mental game, like this is a safe spot. Like this is exciting." And they're going to want to share this with you, and I want you to learn it also. Like this is empowering for me as a father. This is empowering for me as an old guy that I am right now, right? Like the mental game strategies that are being taught by everybody out there, you coach, myself, everybody that's coaching these, they're helping us every single day. And I think what I want parents to understand, and I do this with parents for their kids, but this is for them also. Like, you don't come work with a mental performance coach because you're weak. You don't come work with a mental performance coach because you're broken. Like, and I make a big deal about this. When I got hired by the Atlanta Braves, when I got hired by the Cincinnati Reds, I stepped away from the Atlanta Braves to be independent so that I could work with whomever I want, so that I could work with college programs and high school kids because I want this message to get out to whomever needs it. Okay. But when I got hired by these teams, I'm like, I'm a 34 pant size and a large jersey size. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm a coach. I'm a coach. And they're like, well, are you talking like a uniform? And I'm like, yes, I'm a coach. Like, and they're like, well, we'll try to find you an office. I'm like, I don't need an office. I'm a coach. And so when I'm talking to parents, I'm like, I want your kids to understand that I'm a coach. Like if you go to your strength coach to get stronger, your speed coach to get faster, your hitting coach to work on your swing, and your mental performance coach to give yourself an advantage in the mindset. And I'm like, everybody says it's 90% mental. Like, why are we not training that? Right. And so if you want an advantage in your game, you go work with a mental performance coach to get an advantage, right? And so it's not therapy. We're going to talk about like what you're thinking and where your mind's at. There's no doubt about it. But then we're going to give you strategies so you can attack it. It's just like, hey, I'm having a hard time swinging at the curveball in the dirt. Okay, well, let me give you some drills that you can do so that you can get better at that. Hey, I'm having some negative thoughts when the lights come on. Okay, well, let me give you some drills you can do to get better at that. I'm a coach. And that's the approach that we take. And kids are like, oh, like I had no idea that it was going to be like this. I thought it was like therapy. And it's a completely different perspective. And that's my approach to parents is this isn't just for your kids. Like this is for you to be on board as well. And the terminology and the language that we're speaking is for everybody. So after the game, like the conversation in the car after the game, these can be healthy conversations and you can be part of them. And your son or daughter is going to want you to be part of these. And how much fun is this going to be all of a sudden? Like for you to be back in the life of your post-game conversation with your son or daughter.
I talked to an elite coach, super regional coach this week, and I was like, hey, great season. He goes, you know what? I'm really looking forward to next year. He goes, one of my pain in the butt parents graduated. And I was like, dive in a little bit more on that. He goes, this parent, he said, I could never talk to my student athlete about the conversations that I had with that parent because it would negatively affect their relationship, the parent and child relationship, if I ever indulged. So he goes, I just nodded my head when he would talk to me and then just move on and never brought up any of those conversations with the athlete because he knew what it would have done to their relationship going forward, which I give that coach a lot of credit. I would have had a hard time biting my tongue and not going to the athlete and being like, hey, get your parent under control. But I give that coach a lot of credit for just nodding ahead and just moving on with it, which is amazing to me.
Ton of credit. The job that a coach does is unbelievable, and it's amazing to me, as coaches, we care so deeply about our players, they're family to us. And it's amazing. And it's just, I just look at it. And that's why, like you asked about a post-game journaling. Think about these three questions. What did you do well? What do you want to do better? And how are you going to do it? And it's when you start doing this with your players and you watch them, it will blow your mind how hard it is for them to answer that first question. We are not programmed to look at things that we did well. They won't even find things that they did well because we just beat ourselves up. And a lot of that comes from what? How we're programmed in the home.
Yep.
And, to parents, even to coaches, like that's why that question's first. And this isn't me coming down hard on you. Guess why it's the first? Because I had to be taught that lesson when I'm in professional baseball. I didn't just make this up. This had to be taught to me because guess who used to beat themselves up as a player? It almost ran me out of the game. I had to be taught this, and it saved my career, and it got me to the big leagues. So this message needs to be out there for everybody. It does.
Is there more of a hybrid approach now? Because you have your peak performance coaches, but also mental health professionals. Because obviously that's a difference too. Like you said it, you're going to have your elite performance coaches, which is what you need, but there are also maybe some athletes out there that need a mental health professional with some other things that may be going on off the field.
Yeah, there is 100%. So every organization in professional baseball, they definitely have clinicians that work with, and I work very, very closely with them. And so if they come to me with a situation or a scenario, I will ask them, I come back to that word trust, right? Hey, we've worked really closely together, and I know that we have a lot of trust with each other. You would agree, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, hey, I believe this is a situation where we need to intervene and get you some help. And it's going to help you at home. It's going to help you on the field. And we got to get some of the bricks out of your backpack. So I'm going to recommend
safer space for them.
Safer space for you. And it's for everything. Like, here's what you need. You need freedom. You need freedom in your brain. You need freedom in everything. So I'm going to make a recommendation to you to get you some help. And so I refer, and we, each team has, an individual. And so, yeah, I make that referral, and then I say to them, hey, the second, you get, so let's just say it's something, I don't want to say this as simple, but let's say it's, off-field anxiety, right? Hey, let's go work on that off-field anxiety, because that off-field anxiety is leading to on-field anxiety. Let's address the root cause of this. And then the second that our clinician feels like, we'll kick back to me. Let's go for it. We're going to continue to work together as is right now, but let's address the main problem, and we'll come back over.
Ultimately, when did you know when it was time to be done? I'm sure you had more in the tank, but ultimately, when did you know, like, okay, it's time to move on to the next thing?
That's such a hard question.
It's so hard.
Yeah,
I knew because I wasn't that good. I knew indie ball was going to be it, and that one summer Indy was good. I hit like 335, and I was like, "This is good. I'm done. I want to get on to the next thing."
Yeah, it's such a hard question, and I don't know if I even have the right answer. You just know deep down, deep down in your heart that your calling is to do something else. Obviously there's family situations that come into play. My little man was getting ready to start school, and my family's everything to me. And I don't know if I could have handled being away from them, and that was going to be the situation. So that was a big part of it. It's just there's so many things. One thing I did though when I decided and I made that decision is I sat down and wrote a letter to myself. And I'm like, hey, one of these days you're going to look back and be like, why did you step away from the game? Why did you step away? And you're going to need to read this letter because here's what's going on. And the thing is, you're never really stepping away. And like the game's always in your blood, and there's so many things you can do. For me, I always knew I wanted to serve people. I want to help people get better. I wanted to help people get out of their own way. And it's so unique that I'm into this right now. I used to always ask myself, like, why did I have a chance to play in the big leagues? Like, why did I get up there? Why did I this? Why did I get traded? Why was I around so many amazing people? Why Joe Madden, Mike Scioscia, Eric Wedge was so instrumental in my career, just this and that, why do I have an opportunity to work with a PGA golfer? Chris Kirk, who's been through an amazing story, if you guys don't know it, and all of this just continues to help me serve other people. And so it's pretty clear right now.
And you're still in the game too. Like that's the difference for guys or girls that once they get done playing and they're completely out doing something different. Those of us that are fortunate to stay in it, even though we're not playing or coaching still, like for you, you're still coaching. You're able to stay in the game, which I think is a completely different. Yeah. It alleviates a lot of things for those of us that have been able to stay in the game in some capacity.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And because it's difficult, right? Like stepping away from something that's been everything to us since we were 7. I mean, it's difficult, it's hard. And I talk to my buddies who are out completely, and it still weighs on them. It's still hard because we love to compete. And that's my challenge to them is find something you still can compete at. Because and that can be anything. That's the workforce no matter what. Just compete. Go compete at the gym, go compete, go play pickleball, whatever.
Compete in business.
Compete because we're born to compete and go do that.
What did get in your master's? What'd you get in your master's program that you didn't get as an undergrad?
The main thing it did is it put a couple letters behind my name that allowed me to get hired. More than anything.
That's a barrier of entry too, though.
That's a barrier of entry.
It's a barrier of entry. That's also a barrier of entry. Like there's a reason you go to postgraduate degrees. It is there because there's a barrier. I'm sorry, there's a barrier of entry.
100%.
It shows that you were willing to make the sacrifices to take that next step.
Yeah, and guess what? It also proved to myself that I can do it, and that I'm willing to put the work back in. Right? Like you get out of college and you go play baseball. Like. You get back in after a 10-year career in baseball and, you're writing papers while you're working another career. Like it's good for you. It challenges you to get your brain going again in a different way. I'll tell you what else was really good. It was really good for my kids to see me do it. It was great for my kids to see dad getting after it. And, there's a sense of accomplishment there. I think going back to your previous question, like we are continually needing accomplishment in our life. And this is another mental game thing, but, how do you build trust? It's a verb. We talked about it's an action word. So you win your morning, you create victory in your life every single day. You put things in your routine every single day that you can say, yeah, that's a win. And that's how you build your trust. And when you build your trust, you like who you are. And that's what we need every single day for us to stay on top.
There are many differences between how the Braves, Rangers do things on that side of it and how the Reds are doing things.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of teams, I feel like it's fair to say, aren't quite sure what they want in the mental game. We're still in that space just a little bit. So, the Rangers were still, I got hired to help with to kind of run the minor leagues. And it was still more of the older school version of how they did things. It was, relationship based, which is true across the board, but it was more, we're going to let them come to us. We're not going to, it's not as much of the proactive. It was different than what I wanted to coach and teach. When I got hired to do the Braves, I was the only mental performance coach in the system. And so I got to roll it out, but I got to roll it out exactly how I wanted to. And we had lots of success, and it was a riot. I loved it. The organization was unbelievable. I loved everything about it. Nothing but amazing things to say, and it was really, really tough to step away. But I felt like I needed to work with some of the players that got traded, and then also to be able to work with Pison, who I talked about last night. They weren't sure about me working with Pison, and I think Pison's really gonna help a lot of players. And then when I came over
to work with two of my favorites in Sal Fasano and Derek Johnson.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Sal Fasano's, I mean, you can't say enough good about Sal Fasano. He's, anybody that's around him is better and special. And then I came over to the Reds, and Derek Johnson was a big part of me coming over to the Reds and bringing me over. Last year I was just with the major league team, and they just opened their arms to me coming in. And Derek Johnson, I'm always very cautious coming over. I don't come in too hot. You got to get people to embrace you. They have to trust, there's the word again. They have to trust you as a player. I feel like as a coach, all of our players need three things from us. They need to know that we care about them. They need to know that they can trust us, and they need to know that we're going to make them better. All three. Like 2 out of the 3 is not good enough. It has to be all three. And Derek Johnson was so good about kind of bridging that gap for me, especially with his pitchers. And he's like, go get all of them. Go get all of them, because he believes so much in the mental game. You know him, a ton. And he's been amazing. So the Reds just opened the door for me to come in. We had some success with some of his, a lot of his pitchers right out of the gate. And then this year they've asked me to work the whole system from top to bottom with some help, but all of the minor league guys as well. And so very similar to the Reds situation.
Talk about the Pison app for people that don't know it, because I think it's great.
I think it's really big.
So shout out on the ABCA updates. I think it's gonna be good. That's why I wanted to watch it last night, because I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, Pison came to me at the winter meetings. It's been a year and a half ago, I guess, and asked me they just introduced me to it initially, and then asked me to come on board to help them. Pison's a company. It's a wearable. First of all, it has all the similar things of a Whoop or an Aura, so it gives you all your recovery and your sleep. But the thing that differentiates it from that is it has 3 tests, cognitive tests, and it's first of its kind. It has cognitive tests. Number 1 is it allows you to take it's called a readiness test, which is basically a reaction time test, which is awesome. So you can see where your readiness is today compared to your baseline. So where is my reaction time right now in the moment compared to my normal baseline? So where are you at mentally in this moment compared to your baseline? The second test is a mental agility test, which is a go, no go, and just see where your mind is responding. So how quickly can you make the correct decision? And then the third test is a focus test. And so we've done a ton of studies in this past year and a half. And there's some direct correlation between your reaction time and batting average, on base percentage, and some really cool things. So I'm really excited about Pison, excited the direction it's going. We got a ton of first round draft picks that have been wearing this thing in college and now taking it into pro ball, and a lot of really good testimonials from a lot in baseball, but other sports as well. And I'm excited about Pison. So go listen to that recording we did last night. I'm really excited about, where we're at now. There's a lot of things we didn't even talk about last night, some on-field stuff, but just where we're headed with it. It's pretty special.
Glad you talked about Steve Cutter, by the way. I met him at the Junior College World Series about 5 years ago and interviewed him, and we started talking about the mental side, and he's like the perfect guy for that. Shout out to Coach Cutter. If anybody doesn't know Coach Cutter, reach out to Coach Cutter at Lansing. I think he's about as good as it gets from being willing to experiment with his players.
Yeah,
like there's zero ego. I was so impressed with him. There is zero ego. He's just trying to do whatever it takes to help those guys get better. And that was not surprising to me, even though I didn't know that. But when you brought his name up, it was not surprising to me that you're working with them or you had worked with them, because that's the type of coach he is.
He's one of the biggest
a shining example of what this generation of players needs as a coach.
One of the biggest secrets in baseball. And, like finding him at Lansing, like those players that go through Lansing have no idea what they've got. Like he's once he gets discovered.
It's crazy. He's kindred spirits with all of us. Shout out Coach Cutter. You're the best.
He's special. He's special. Coach Cutter. Love it. So,
do you have a fail forward moment? Everybody's got to answer this one. Something you thought was going to set you back, but it could be personal, professional, but now looking back, it helped you move forward.
That's a really good question. I think just really struggling in baseball. I think, I saw my career in professional baseball as a failure. Honestly, I got drafted well. I got drafted in the second round, and got to the big leagues and struggled, and it crushed me. If I'm being totally vulnerable, and I'm, I encourage my athletes to be vulnerable, so I promised I will be also. It took me years to talk about my career, because it was like I disappointed myself. I felt like I let everybody down. I felt like I let my organization down because I just didn't get it done. And now I look back and I'm like, this is why. Because I needed to go through that so I can help my players. I needed to go through the struggles so that I can be a better mental performance coach. My calling, it's funny, you play this game since you're 7. I thought my calling was to play in the big leagues, was to be a Major League Baseball player. My calling was to be a mental performance coach, because that's where my passion is. As much as I love the game of baseball, my passion is to help players. And to help not just players, is to help human beings and to help everybody. And so I needed to struggle so that I can help them and be compassionate about them and see their struggles, and then hopefully work through that in my mind and give them advice to keep them going. And I get choked up thinking about that right now because I've never said that out loud before. But I needed to really struggle in order to do this.
And I was surprised. I played against you. And for anybody who doesn't know Zach, Zach was 1996, a freshman in the Missouri Valley. But think about the shortstops that played in the Valley. Jamie Carroll played at Evansville. Jerry Hairston was the freshman of the year. And because I thought for sure, I'm like, Zach had to have been the freshman of the year in the Valley. And then you're like, oh, there's Jerry Hairston, played at Southern. You think about the amount of big leaguers that played in the Missouri Valley back then. It was a lot. Yeah. And not just at Wichita. Nate Robertson, I think if he's healthy in 98, you guys probably win the national championship, correct?
We had
57 and 9.
Yeah, 56 and 7 our junior year. This is crazy. And again,
he threw 6 innings. And that's the thing that you don't. I had to go back and look.
Yeah.
And I'm looking. I'm like, Nate pitched 6 innings off that team, and they still won 56 games.
So I pulled this up the other day because I wanted to talk to my AA team. My manager, the AA manager, asked me to pull up my numbers and show them to our team.
Every year was ridiculous. Your freshman year was ridiculous.
And so I don't like this. Is very uncomfortable for me.
And for me too. But you have to embrace it because it was so good. It was stupid.
Yeah.
Your numbers were stupid.
So here's what's crazy, and the reason why I tell you my numbers is to tell you what the other guys on the team did. So my junior year, I hit 424 with 17 bombs, and 96 RBIs. I think I scored 103 runs or something like that, 22 stolen bases, okay? But the reason why I tell you that is because I was third on the team in every category. Yeah. So,
Casey Blake is that's the thing. Here's a crazy thing about professional baseball is the scouts in the area didn't think Casey Blake could play.
Yeah.
It drove my dad nuts.
Yeah.
It drove my dad bonkers because he's like, scouts don't know what they're talking about. Casey Blake will be the best player on any team he plays on. And for guys that think that guy can't play or he can't hit, like they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. It was, we had a few pretty good teams, those couple years. So it was.
Well, last year, -5 too.
-5.
They got rid of it after that because USC beat Arizona State like 22-18 in the national championship game, and it needed a change.
It needed.
You had to play infield back then. Playing infield, especially on the old turf fields that you guys had, Creighton had, Indiana State with the Omni turf. Playing on those fields with -5, it was like it was dangerous. I'm surprised more guys didn't get hit back then.
Look out. Well, a
lot changed after that because then Christensen Molina happened the year after you left. Which that honestly changed me as a human, the ins and outs of that. But that I almost thought about getting out of coaching after that because I was like, I don't know if I can handle if this is what it's going to be. I was like, I don't know if I can handle this. Luckily, I stayed in, but it wasn't good for Ben or Anthony either one of those guys. Like that situation for any of that, and it's interesting because it comes up. You see it in the paper every once in a while with the situation, and those of us that were actually in the ballpark, it's a different story. There's two sides to that story, and I'm glad now it's far removed. I did see Anthony when I was coaching at Western. Anthony came in, his daughter was there, and that I had not seen him in a long time. And I'm sure Ben's doing fine, whatever he's doing. But, just the respect that I had for Wichita's program, it changed a lot after that. It did change a lot. But I have the utmost respect for Gene and Brent and JT. It just was an awful situation that we should have probably never played that game. That was a thing. Like after it happened, we probably should have just stopped. Because Evans, there's some backstories to this. Evansville was in first place and Wichita was in second place at this point. But luckily, Preston Larson was a freshman and was one of the best pitchers in the Valley, and so we ended up winning. But Anthony had hit 2 home runs off Ben the year before. There were some backstories to that like when you dive into it, but I'm sure Ben didn't mean, nobody means to hit anybody. It just was an unfortunate thing. And Anthony shouldn't have gone to the other side. They're you see both. I see the Evansville side of it. I see the Wichita side of it. Anthony should have never went around before the game to the other side by Wichita's. Again, we all played it. You knew what you're going to have at Wichita. It was a very intimidating place to play. If you won there, we won my freshman year. On Sunday, this is a good story, so I respect that program, especially at that point. But we were in an extra inning game on Sunday. Our number one was starting on Sunday because my dad had a bright idea to try to beat Oklahoma, who had just won the national championship on Thursday. We're playing. That's back when the Big 12 and the Valley were playing midweek games. So we're playing Oklahoma on Thursday, and then we're going to play Wichita on Friday. We have a chance to beat Oklahoma. My dad sends our Friday guy down to warm up, and he can't close the game, so we get beat. Well, Kyle can't throw on Friday. Mike Drumright beats us 2-1 on Friday night. Our first year in the Valley, you go to Wichita, there's 7,000 people. It's 25 degrees. There's 7,000 people. But we're in the 10th inning. We get a runner at second. I move him over. Adam Bennis was Andy and Alan's brother. He closed but also hit, but he's up. They bring Braden Looper in to close this thing out. So I'm like, we got no shot. So Looper's first fastball is in the catcher's glove. Adam swings. Second fastball, it's in the catcher's glove. Adam swings. They throw an 0-2 changeup and sped up Adam's bat. So it's base hit up the middle. We score. Before Adam gets to first, Gene is on the field already. So Adam's hitting first. Gene is already on the field. He took out Looper and the catcher for throwing an 0-2 changeup. so we end up winning. And it was like a miracle because everybody in the Valley was told my dad, you'll never beat Wichita at Wichita.
We'll never go in there.
But we did. But the funny backstory of that is Adam Bennis and Braden Looper were teammates in the minor leagues with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Braden Looper would never admit to that story. He would never. He would tell Adam, he goes, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't remember that. That's hilarious.
I don't remember what you're talking about. But for me, I don't think JT gets enough credit for what he did for you guys.
Unbelievable.
You guys, the infielders at Wichita were always great. And
He
you
was,
and Hooper show up at the same time. I'm a junior, and you guys are freshmen. I'm like, who are these two? Because you
yeah,
guys just look different. I mean, you look at the infield, the outfield, the catchers you guys had, the pitchers. Like, it just was big leaguers
it was such a,
all over
I
the
just,
field.
I
And you
lucked out. I
just
didn't
knew I
sign
loved
there.
competing against you guys. One, it was gratifying to beat you guys because you knew what we were rolling out there and what you guys were rolling out there was completely different. But that's the beautiful thing about baseball too is
Yeah. Right.
you still got a chance.
Yeah.
But I had like JT. I just always felt like he was very underrated and didn't get the credit that he deserved
Totally.
for what he did for you guys.
Absolutely loved him. I didn't sign there until end of July. So I was going JUCO. I didn't get recruited by anybody. I walked off a tournament somewhere, and Yavapai offered me a scholarship. So I was going Yavapai. Late, I guess, Kenneberg took the job at Utah after my senior year and walked in and is like, yeah, do you want a scholarship? I just got here. Do you want a scholarship? And I'm like, I got to grow up. I got to get out of town. So I'm like, I'm going to Yavapai. And then Wichita called me like end of July. And I'm like, well, yeah, like you're ranked number one in the country. I'd love to come out. But then I got out there and they had a senior shortstop, and then they had Jeff Ryan coming in, who was a high school All-American. And I'm like, where am I going to play? And then Gene was like, listen, he's like, I just play the best player. I don't care if you're an All-American last year. I don't care. He goes, and then he called all of us in. He's like, I just need to shortstop and catch the ball. He goes, they had enough firepower offensively. And I'm like, I don't know if I can hit, but I can catch the ball. And lucked out. I started as a freshman. That was great. I mean, I can't think of a better spot. I mean, it just worked out great. Unbelievable.
We miss that now. I was a late sign. I didn't decide to go to Evansville till June after my senior year. I had other options. And I think we miss that in recruiting now. And that's one of the things I try to tell parents and players now when they call about recruiting, the process. I'm like, I know it's different, but some guys it's way better. Wait as long as you can to try to figure out where you might actually fit.
Yeah.
Everybody's in such a hurry now to get it over with, and there's so many mistakes made on parents and players' parts, but also coaches' parts, because everybody's in such a rush to get the decision done with. And besides who you marry, it's probably the most important decision you're going to have. Is where 100%. You end up. Where you end up, because who you surround yourself with matters. If you end up going to Yavapai, who knows where your path ends up if you don't go to Wichita.
It's a total game changer. Yes. I mean, I got a whole different world right now.
Yes.
Totally.
Yep.
I agree 100%.
Yep. What about your morning routines? I mean, you're in great shape. You've stayed in great shape. What about your morning routines?
Yeah, my morning routine is crucial to me. It's really kept me just mentally locked in. Get up. It's been up and at it, working out almost, every day.
What time do you get up?
So, forever I worked at the hospital in orthopedic cells. It was the gap in between baseball and before I got into full-time mental performance. And so I found CrossFit. And so they had the 5:15 CrossFit class so I could get that in before I went into a surgery. And so it was 4:45. Hustle down to the 5:15 class, get back showered, and make it into the hospital. So, podcast on the way in, listen to the podcast on the way into the gym, listen to podcasts on the way home from the gym, and go from there. So, yeah.
You still do as many reps as you were doing CrossFit wise?
I've maintained CrossFit until just about 6 months ago.
I give you a lot of credit. It's a lot of reps.
It's a lot of reps. I've lowered the weight a lot, but maintained the reps. I've kind of gotten over the whole, I need to lift heavy stuff.
Because they're in where I work out. I'm up at 4:30, but I'm usually there at Strive at 5. But they have a separate CrossFit, so they're going at it. When I'm doing my thing at 5:15 in the morning, they're getting after it in the CrossFit room.
Yeah,
It does develop a different mentality too, though. Like I give the people that buy into the CrossFit part of it because I think it does help you develop a different mentality.
It is. And you know what that did for me? We talked about it earlier, the whole competitive mindset. That kind of fulfilled that for me.
I think Orange Theory does that for people too.
Yeah,
I've done one Orange Theory class. I wanted to see where my fitness level was at because I don't do a ton of cardio. So it was a free class, and I went in there and I did good. And I was like, okay, what I'm doing on the side is
working.
Is working. I'm good with what.
My wife did Orange Theory forever. I'd go with her. I liked it. It was good. But so it's interesting. The CrossFit thing, I've had a couple injuries with it. Nothing too bad. The low back goes every once in a while, but it used to go when I played. So same stuff. And there's been a couple times where my wife's like, "It's time for you to like get away from that. Like you're not." And then it's interesting. I'll get away, and then like 6 weeks away from it, and she's like, "You need to go back to CrossFit for your mind."
Yeah. Yep.
She's like, for whatever reason, you mentally just have an edge to you when you go to CrossFit, which is right. It's pretty cool. So, but I go there, I sit over in the corner, I just go over and do my thing. The guys are in there. They're awesome guys. They're cool, but I'm not the typical, the shirts never come off, but I just go in there and I like to just get my butt kicked.
Yeah.
I like to just absolutely get crushed in my workout and barely walk out of there and be sore all day.
Tabata is mine. Her name is Hannah Eden. She's on Instagram. She's got a great backstory because she was addicted to drugs and got off of it. But Tabata, awesome. That kettlebell Tabata workout, I don't do it all the time, but when I want to kick myself in the butt, I'll do that Tabata workout, and that thing is it's like 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time either. It's like 15 minutes, and you're done.
That's why I got into CrossFit, is because I'm like, I don't have time to go work out. So, and then my buddy's like, come do CrossFit. Like, I'll do an 8-minute workout with you and you won't be able to walk for 3 days. And I'm like, well, I can do a 10-minute workout. I got time for that. So
did Brian Kane bring you to the convention for the first time, for your convention? Is that why you showed up at the ABCA convention?
First time? Yeah. Yeah. So he spoke, the last one he spoke at?
Nashville.
Yeah. So I went to Anaheim with Ken. That's the first one I went to. And then he spoke in Nashville. It was pretty funny.
It was my first year with the ABCA on this side. It was 2020. It was It was the year before. That was pre-COVID. Yeah. It was right before COVID happened. It was Nashville. He spoke.
And that was a hilarious one because the night before he showed me his slides, and I looked at it and I just sat there. And he's like, "What do you got?" And I'm like, "They don't want to hear this." I was like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "You're just basically saying thank you to all the teams that you've worked with. Like, no one's coming here to hear you say thank you to the teams you're working with. Like, these guys want content. Like, you just got done with Corbin Burns. Like, Corbin Burns went from the worst pitcher in the history of baseball to winning a Cy Young. Like, how? He goes, "You want me to change my whole presentation?" And I'm like, "Yes, this is not what they're here for." And I know that's not what we're supposed to do at the ABCA, but I'm like, "Brian, like, this is not what they're here for."
Yeah.
And so at 11 o'clock the night before, he completely changed his whole presentation.
And that's in the pre-stuff too. Like that's why guys have done a better job. Their thank yous are usually one-page slide at the end. Yeah, because of what you said. Like, if people are going to invest the time to show up, and I think that's why people continue to keep coming, is they know they're going to get information when they show up. Like, if you're going to spend the money on the hotels and the travel and meals and all that, because we'll hear about it when, like, if we will hear about it from our members. Our members are awesome because they are honest with us, which is why our organization is good, because we do listen to what our members have to say. We're in the service industry. We're providing service to our members. So if you come out there and it's not handled right, we will hear about it from our members.
Well, I'm like, you're probably the number one speaker on this thing.
Yes.
You have more information than, I mean, everyone wants to hear, Godwin speak and this, and that's cool. But you have more content that people are going to take notes on than maybe anybody on the whole thing.
Well, he's different because he has more touch points across the industry because he's dealing with more players.
Right.
Where a coach with his individual program, that's not as many touch points. Kaner's got a ton of touch points from his history of when he started to now. He's got a lot of different touch points on what he's dealing with and who he's dealing with.
And so I was like, Kane, like this isn't it.
Love it. Good.
Start over. I'm like, start over. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, start over. This is not it. So he's like, okay. He goes, and then Jacob, he calls him a DFE, do F and everything guy. Yep. He's like, Jacob, 5 guys across the street. We need burgers. We need caffeine. Let's go. So he went and we just crushed it and redid his whole PowerPoint. And he crushed it. So like he always does. But
you did too, by the way. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get up in front of that room and do it.
Thank you.
So you did a great job. Your speech was awesome.
Love it. We love it. It's fun. I mean, we live for that stuff, just sharing a message, and you hope that there's someone out there that's going to impact. Yep. So we love doing it.
I think the thing, too, that people don't realize, those of us that have been around a long time, there are new people in that room. There are people that's their first time or they just got started coaching. So sometimes what you maybe think is remedial or everybody's heard that's not the case, because you're going to have 1,000 to 2,000 new people in that room that have never heard any of that. So it's okay to revisit some old stuff too when you're talking, because that's probably going to be eye-opening or earth-shattering to somebody because it's going to be the first time they've ever heard it.
Well, that's true. And then my thought too, like sometimes my podcast, some of my messagings repeat. And people give me a hard time sometimes. They're like, we heard this last year. And I'm like, yeah, and I took swings today too, just like I did yesterday.
Well, yes, it's good to go back. I equate it to reading. Yeah. I'll reread books that I haven't read in a while, and it speaks to you. They speak to you differently. Or go back and watch a movie that you haven't watched in a long time. It's going to speak to you differently than when you were watching it 15, 20 years ago, because your experience levels is way different now.
Yeah, 100%. And I say that to them honestly. I said, every single Monday, every single January, I'm going to talk about process over outcome. Every single February is going to be honest self-evaluation. Every single February. Yep. And I'm like, and it's not because I'm lazy and can't come up with new content. I said,
those are the foundations.
It's a strategy.
Those are the foundations.
Yeah, and I'm like, we take swings every day because repetition makes us better. Why would we not do it in the mental game?
Yeah, for sure.
And they're like, and I'm like, I said, I really feel like that's important. So,
what are some final thoughts before I let you go?
No, I just think that, we need to continue to push the mental game. Like, it's just an untapped advantage. And not an untapped advantage. I think it's going to help us to get our players to enjoy the game again, to get out of their own way, and to get back to what we could call the Little League mentality of just going out there and playing the game that we love so much. Eliminate anxiety, eliminate frustrations, eliminate fears, and just go play this special game that we love. And that's what these strategies are going to do for people.
And it allows them to go past what their ceiling is.
Go past their ceiling.
They're going to be better players. Or better performers. Yeah. You're going to be a better performer. Whatever your ceiling was, if you buy in and invest in this, your ceiling you're going to bust through your ceiling. You'll be
You're going to bust through your ceiling.
You're going to bust through your ceiling.
You're going to bust through your ceiling, and here's how we're going to do it: by raising the floor.
Yep.
We're going to raise the floor and raise the foundation so that when you don't need to rise up, you actually sink to your training.
Yeah. And your poor performance isn't as poor as what it was before, because you're going to have bad performances. Like that's just
100%.
That's part of it. So.
You're going to roll it out there, and you're going to be able to compete in the present moment, one pitch at a time, and you're going to be able to be in that. We talked about it before. You're going to get out of the threat. You're going to get into you're going to be able to get into that compete mode by saying, bring it on, because you have trust in who you are, because this is a process and a program to be able to develop that. And
by the way, you've been in my notes as a speaker for like 2 years. And honestly, it's like I have all these, like I'll put names in, and now was probably the time that we were supposed to record.
Supposed to. No, No, it is. It is.
I mean,
I
think
firmly
about the
believe that.
Pison webinars last night. Like now is like the time where we're supposed to record. So that's why you got to trust the universe.
No, well, I mean, even the threat versus challenge, right? Like that popped up last week, and I think it's such a big deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Threat versus challenge. We hit on that hard, and I needed advice from you, and I need to figure out how to coach that.
Love it.
How do we get there? So no, I think the timing's perfect. So
Zach, thanks so much for your time. It's always great
Thank
memories.
you.
When we get around Old Valley guys, it's always good memories. Love it.
Fun stuff.
Thank you.
Fun stuff.